And we welcome you to Conscious Solutions. This program is about discussing what's happening in our lives individually, within our communities, and out into the world. And what are some of the solutions that we can discover together, and how through your consciousness you can contribute to this world through the many facets of your intelligence and your heart. Today we're going to discuss education. I'd like to introduce to you a person of whom I'm very proud, Navjit Kandola. She was the director of the Nijoni School for Global Consciousness and now works with the educational system in Las Vegas, Nevada. She has many ideas and solutions for education today and for the education of the future of our children. And we must plan for that in this moment. So let me bring her to speak with you. Welcome, Navjit, and we're really delighted to hear your voice and your heart about education. So I'll just ask you to begin and tell us whatever you would like to.
Well, I think that education is a huge conversation, and most of us think that education has to do with sending our children to school and colleges and universities, and we forget that our children, from the first moment that they're born, they're constantly learning, taking things in, and so the home environment is very, very important. The relationships within the family are very important.
Yes.
The kind of adventures that you go on as family, with friends, very, very important. And we don't realize there's so much information that's just streaming in to the child's consciousness.
Yes.
The child's brain, from the moment they are conceived, is taking in information, and at that point they are processing how they are going to interface with the world, yes, what kind of relationships they're going to have. Yes. And so the first years of a child's life are very, very important.
Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure that when we're around children, yes, that we bring the highest of ourselves. Yes. You know, what is it that we want our children to learn? We want them essentially to be loving beings, mm-hmm, beings who feel that they belong in the world, mm-hmm, and that they are safe, and that an education isn't separate. It isn't, yes, going to school from 8 in the morning, yes, until 3 in the afternoon, and it's like a job.
I think one thing that you're mentioning is very, very important, and that is that we want to conceive how do we grow whole, yes, human beings, loving, yeah, human beings. Yeah. And the opportunity in education today, and certainly in the future of education, in our Nijoni education, has been how do you develop the heart, mm-hmm, the emotional, right, body, yeah, the concept of self, sense of self, so, yeah, that a child is not always looking for how can I win or how can I please the teacher or the family, mm-hmm, but how can I express, mm-hmm, the knowing that a child has, mm-hmm, and the wonderment and the possibility of taking all the information, passing it through the self, so that the self beams into the world as a happy person. Mm-hmm. And we have forgotten that education must be about how to relate, right, how to love, yeah, how to give. And so I think this is very important in education.
I agree, and I think that you hit on some really key important factors that we could begin to incorporate, yes, into the school system is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And if you have a child who has a sense of self, like you said, mm-hmm, then their sense of learning isn't dependent on their sense of survival. Do these people love me? Do, yes, I feel safe here?
Yes. And
so the ideas and solutions that are going to come from that child, yes, are going to be about a bigger world, a different world where religious differences, cultural differences, racial differences are not even going to be part of the composition in terms of creating separation, but as things that actually contribute to the wholeness of our reality, of our world.
Yes.
And I think that another important aspect of education is nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's talked about a lot these, yes, days, but maybe not enough. Yes. And that is that, our children's brains, they have to be fed. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but the parents have to eat well and model what a healthy lifestyle is, whether it's nutrition, exercise. These are just the basics, the foundation upon which
Yes.
the child then learns how to interact in their own life.
In today's world, where usually both mother and father are working, we've gotten very much into the habit of fast food.
Yes.
Anything you can get on the table
Right.
immediately. And that's why at Nijoni and within our own conversation of education, we recognize that we have to include superfoods.
Yeah.
So that, and very fortunately, in many of the markets today, you can buy nutritional food that you can eat very quickly.
Absolutely.
That can be organically based so that it's not poisoning the child with pesticides at the same time. And then adding to that sort of fast food but nutritional, we can bring the superfoods, the blue-green algae, the brewer's yeast.
Yeah.
In my Peace Corps days, I was able to support the life, and perhaps I could even say save the lives of a number of children by adding brewer's yeast to their water, to their milk, so that they had the underlying base energies that they needed to develop their brains, even when they were allergic to milk or they were on diets that didn't support their brain. We were able to give them things that would go directly into the brain that allowed them to blossom, whereas otherwise they probably would have withered and not been healthy at all. And one of the things that, as you know, we've certainly found that often when children are labeled ADD, or they can't sit still in school, or they can't behave, that it's often the irritation in the intestines or in the stomach that's causing the brain to fire, and therefore they become restless or act out. And if you simply give them the foods that they need so that they can digest and so that they are healthy, they are happy, they are calm, and so therefore they really are able to take in. I've also found that many of the most intelligent children, they're just moving at a very fast rate. And so we have to develop educational systems that allow them to move, that allow their brains to fire and to go from this exploration to that, and to put the two together. Einstein, a great template of intelligence on this planet, realized relativity. That you look at something here and suddenly you recognize, but that connects with this thing over there. And we want our children to be holographic like that. Otherwise they won't come up with the solutions that will take us on into a new level of education.
Right. I think that also, as you know from starting Nijoni and having children yourself, that you have to have a composition that is holographic.
Yes.
And to most people's common language, that's not a term or a way of looking that they've done.
Yes.
And children have that capacity to be what they may call imagination, or be able to look into the world from many, many perspectives.
Yes.
And I think that that's really important, again, to allow the child to move, to allow them to think outside of the box, and to, again, on a very simple, basic level, I think that the educational structure as it stands doesn't facilitate that. It facilitated in the past for people to create a standard of living, that they could have a quality of life. And now we've got to allow for past that standard of living, which is just making it. And I think that's part of, we haven't thought of that. That could be a possibility of, can an education system create dreams? Can it help you to fulfill your dreams? From whether it's financial dreams, emotional dreams, community dreams, or
creativity.
Exactly, a vision of the world. I mean, we are quickly coming into an arena which is going to be not just global, but we are traveling into the solar neighborhood. And so what will our children have to say about that? And what kind of bodies are they going to need, not in terms of just physical body, what body of intelligence, creativity is going to allow for that interaction, so that we're not just stuck in this little idea that I'm just a little human being here.
Yes.
And
I think it's very important to think of our children as fully developed souls.